Good evening and welcome to Africa News Network First Fast Live. Bonsoir, Dumelang, Sanbonani, Namaste. Now, top story this half hour, and now a rather shocking one from the Western Cape, where schools may be allowed to sell alcohol. The Western Cape Education School Amendment Bill was approved by the Provincial Cabinet, allowing the sale of alcohol at school. The Amendment Bill provides the option for schools to apply to have alcohol at events outside school hours, subject to strict conditions. Basic Education Minister Enji Motshekga has raised concerns over the Western Cape government's plan. And the Basic Education Department is considering amending national legislation to nullify the proposal to sell alcohol on school grounds. Now, supporters of the pro-alcohol bill say selling alcohol can raise huge amounts of revenue for schools. But in 2016, a Western Cape draft policy document to curb alcohol abuse says the economic contribution is dwarfed by alcohol-related harm to the population. Proponents of the bill say it has strict conditions, including that alcohol may not be sold or consumed during school hours. However, it may send the wrong message, as statistics reveal over 35% of Western Cape learners in grades 8 to 11 already binge drink. Proponents also argue that educators should not be prejudiced just because they are in the education profession. However, provincial statistics show 80% of personal injuries and emergency incidents are alcohol or drug related.
Schools are supposed to be places of learning and teaching. They should not encourage the use of alcohol at the place of work or for functions at schools. If schools want to sell alcohol for fundraising, which is the common critique out there, they're saying schools want to raise funds through alcohol sales. Let schools go in hire venues off the school premises to do their particular practices.
And joining us live in studio is Troy Martin, spokesperson for the Minister of Basic Education. Good evening to you. Steve Mabona, spokesperson for the Gauteng Education Department. Good evening to you. And you at home, you're most welcome to give us a call. The lines are open 011-542-2186, or we're on all social media platforms as well. What do you make out of this? I mean, with the Western Cape provincial government deciding to permit alcohol on school grounds within certain conditions, of course.
Good evening, Cindy. And from our perspective at the National Department, we are very concerned about this legislation. From our perspective, we think it's very unethical, considering the huge substance abuse problems that we have in our schools, in our education sector, and in the Western Cape in particular. It doesn't seem to make sense to us to now go to the level where you're willing to sell alcohol at school, but you're complaining about a substance abuse problem in schools. We want to promote schools that are clean from any kinds of drugs, weapons, or alcohol, and we think that this is very counterintuitive of that goal.
Well, and Steve, on your side, would you say that this makes economic sense in the sense that schools will now have another income stream or revenue stream, or whether that the rationale just doesn't hold water?
No, look, with us it doesn't hold water, because the schools and the management, they did try, with us to say they want to go into selling alcohol, and we said no. As per your safety measures, that we need to take in consideration. I mean, our schools are sacred. We're talking learners, whether it's after school or it's a weekend, you will find a way where learners will want to go and access the school. So we are saying it doesn't make sense for us to make schools access alcohol. Because learners are there to learn, not to access alcohol. Because you can say you're not going to sell to them, but they will find a way of accessing that alcohol. So hence we said no, and you need to have a license to sell alcohol. So we interacted with the licensing board to say in Gauteng we don't allow such, and there was a clear circular which went to all the schools, and it was interpreted by the SGBs and the school principals to say Gauteng does not allow it. So that's where we at now.
But is there a standoff, though, between the National Department and the Provincial Education Department in the Western Cape, in the sense that, as you're rightfully saying, that there are structures where you can apply for a license to sell alcohol? In this case, the provincial government has taken it on their own volition to give the head of department and the school governing bodies that right. Is there a standoff?
Well, I wouldn't like to say that, Cindy, but there certainly is a difference of opinion on this matter in particular. And I think if you look at everything that we are doing as a country legislatively, is to protect our learners from alcohol and drug abuse. If you look at the liquor amendment bill that's currently being passed through Parliament, it's making its way through the different processes. That clearly states that shebeens and taverns and bars are not allowed within 500 meters of a school premises. Now, if you're saying that on the one hand, but then you're allowing liquor to be sold on school premises on another hand, what exactly is the message that we're trying to send? So I think we need to be clear, and this is why, as the National Department, we have made it clear. We've said that if we can't resolve this, we will have to address it through national legislation, and we're prepared to go that route. It would be unfortunate. I know that the Minister did request that the MEC intervene and withhold this from going through the provincial cabinet processes, so that further consultation and discussion could happen around this, not just the liquor aspect, but the entire amendment bill that they have passed. And unfortunately, this didn't happen, but we will continue to work towards ensuring that no liquor is sold or permitted on school premises.
All right, let's invite Maurice Smathers, coordinator for the South African Alcohol Policy Alliance. Good evening to you, and thanks so much for joining us. Surely this can't be a good thing to promote the sale of alcohol to underage learners.
No, definitely. We would agree as SAPA that this is not a good development. So we've written a letter to the MEC to voice our concerns about the issue. And we are also looking into whether other provinces, what the policy in other provinces is around this, because we would like to establish whether this is a broader problem than just the Western Cape. And we'll also be approaching the National Department. Currently there is a liquor amendment bill that is pending nationally. And we would want to encourage the Department of Trade and Industry to introduce an additional clause there, indicating that this thing of selling alcohol and making it available on school premises should not be allowed.
In your view, though, what would be the rationale? Because the proponents of the bill suggest that there will be effective monitoring, evaluation and controls. It will only be sold at school events and outside school hours. Do you buy this, though? And what's the rationale behind it? I'm struggling to make sense of it myself.
Well, look, I mean, there is no doubt that many schools are struggling with raising funds, and alcohol being the kind of product that it is an easy way to raise money. That's why a lot of people try and sell alcohol at events like this, because they know it's a dead certainty that they're going to sell a lot of the product. But that to us is not enough justification for doing this, because alcohol, as has been said already, is already a problem among young people in this country. We know also that the liquor companies are very keen to attract young people to drinking, because they are their future market. And so, as far as we're concerned, as much as possible should be done to limit the exposure of children to alcohol. Already they're exposed to alcohol at home and in their communities. They shouldn't also be exposed to alcohol at school, even if it's out of school hours. But I mean, for example, one of the things that they want to do is they want to have it at sports events. They want to have it at wine auctions, I read that the MEC mentioned, and so on. So it's not events where there are not going to be children there. Already, I think, at some rugby events and so on, although I believe that's been stopped now, but at rugby events they've had beer gardens and that sort of thing. Kids see these things, kids are exposed to the advertising, kids are exposed to seeing adults drinking, and that is going to, in a way, normalize alcohol for them and push them in the direction of saying, well, you know, when I'm 18, I can drink as well. And we would like that not to happen. We think there's too much of that already in society, and we want to give kids a chance to make a rational choice as to whether to drink or not. And this kind of thing is not going to help.
Please stay on the line, Mr. Smathers. We have Troy Martin, spokesperson for the Minister of Basic Education, Steve Mabona, spokesperson for the Gauteng Department of Education. The statistics are really alarming. If you look at 35.2% of Western Cape learners between the grades of 8 and 11 already binge drink, and this is even above any other province. In terms of monetary impact, the adverse impact that this binging or drinking has, 165 to 236 billion rand is estimated to be related to alcohol-related abuses or harm. So why then is there no at least opportunity for the National Department of Education to debate the matter? Why would the Western Cape province decide to take this on their own?
This is really the question, Cindy, is that there is so much evidence that this is a bad idea. The statistics speak for themselves. They've made the example, like Mr. Smathers was saying, of having beer gardens at your sports days. This for us is still problematic. Yes, it's going to be adults, but you're encouraging drinking openly and debaucherous, possibly, behavior in front of young children who are playing sports. Sports should be a promotion of health, and we want to set good examples for our learners. We don't want them to see that, okay, being an adult means that you can drink and become debaucherous. And unfortunately, that is what happens at these sports events where alcohol is sold. It becomes a very troubling and sometimes violent situation, and we don't want that in our schools. We want our schools to be safe spaces, and we're extremely opposed to this.
Yeah, but is there a tumultuous relationship then from national and provinces, just by this example, this particular amendment being gazetted without the national approval of the Education Department?
There hasn't been, and we are very perturbed by the way that this has transpired, and we're hoping that it's still resolvable. We're hoping that we can go back to the table and sit around and come to an amicable solution that suits all of us. We understand that schools want to raise money, but we believe that there are the right way. So there's ethical ways and ways that promote social cohesion and that promote the activities of the school environment that we want to see, a school ethos, a community ethos. We want those kinds of activities to happen in our schools, but we don't believe that selling alcohol is the way to do it.
Yeah, things have certainly changed, Mr. Mabona, from the time we used to have cake sales to raise funds to alcohol. But as a microcosm of what's going on in the larger society, clearly this would be against not only the rights of the children, but the kind of society that we want to build.
No, definitely. I mean, you look at, previous weeks we were talking about the teenage pregnancy. I mean, you look at the society that we are living in. So any vacuum that you're going to allow to prevail, we might find ourselves in situations where the learners are uncontrollable. You don't know what might have transpired there. I mean, look at your matric dances. We're monitoring very closely on what is happening on matric dances. Some of them, there's the incidences that are occurred there. They're quite, alarming. So we are actually working very closely with the school management to say, how do we make sure that we control actually, your matric dances, so that you don't have a free flow of alcohol there and you have an uncontrollable situation. So we cannot really allow such situation to happen in our school environment.
Absolutely. And the lines are open, 01154222186. Timber, you're calling us from the Val. Good evening to you. And what's your comment or question?
How are you, Cindy?
I'm well. How are you?
Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Cindy, this is a big, big embarrassment, what we saw it on TV. Are you with me, Cindy?
I'm listening.
Yes. On the issue, the leadership of the DA in Cape Town, their plan is to kill our young people's mind, especially on the side of black people. You can't put the bottle store on the school facility. You know what? This thing is embarrassing. And the Department of Education, they were not supposed to even to ask or to do anything. They were supposed to arrest those people and pay an out of that. They were supposed to arrest them. The problem of our people, of the leadership of this country, they always ask, they always sitting down and negotiate. When they see things are destroying, people are destroying the country. Those people, they were supposed to be arrested.
All
No
right.
compromise, no nothing.
All right, thanks so much, Timba,
They
for
are
your
killing
call.
our people, young people's mind.
All right, Siyabonga kakhulu bhuti Gary in the Eastern Cape. Good evening to you.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, I just want to tell you something about my experience about liquor. You know, my mom used to have a sabine. We call it in Afrikaans. We call it a smokkelhuis. And I when I was on school, I used to come home and then I must sell liquor. But today, I don't drink liquor because I know what it smells like and what it tastes like, and it doesn't taste nice. So it's not that you can say you can sell the liquor to the children. No, it's not for that.
Yeah.
It's only liquor on special occasions when they're doing something like a fundraising. But you can't say because you're gonna sell it on the premises.
Yeah, but
That
you know what?
it's
How do we
used-
measure, Gary? And you know, thank goodness that you didn't fall into that trap of alcohol or substance dependence. But how do you measure the resistance or threshold of somebody else by having it accessible there? I think at some point we need to preserve certain spaces where alcohol simply should not be sold. I know as a child you may not have the choice because we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. But certainly at some level we need to have legislation that is effective to curb these kind of practices.
Yeah, but you see the legislation are so critical now. I just wanted to tell you something about the legislation. We've got national legislation where the liquor license issue licenses. Then we've got legislation like bylaws, where the bylaws are curbing the whole industry of liquor. You know, SAB alone lose like R1 billion a day. And if those bosses decided to close SAB and cut all their machines up, where are those people going to get work of those liquor
All right,
trading
Gary,
like SAB?
Yeah, no, we get your point. Thank you so much, Gary, calling us from the Western Cape. Just your response again to say, you know, I don't know if he's a proponent thereof, but suggesting that if it's done within the certain confines and the strict conditions are applied, it may not lead to alcohol abuse.
I think we need to take a strong stand here, and as you've mentioned in statistics, they are very severe. We have a problem with alcohol abuse in this country, in the Western Cape in particular, of our young people, and we need to ensure that our schools are not in any way promoting the consumption of alcohol and promoting that type of a lifestyle. We want to promote a healthy environment for our young people to thrive, and there are places, if you want to drink alcohol, there are places, there are bars. You can go to your local tavern that is licensed and you can drink there, but keep it out of our schools. That's all we're saying.
And I'll come back with that other question, whether the National Department is timid and being bullied, as Temba from the VAL suggests. Ramatswe in Ekurhuleni, good evening to you.
I'm very disappointed by this kind of behavior. We're supposed to have a situation where an accord, sports, and other things, not drink binge. It's completely acceptable to me.
No, and I couldn't agree with you more. But what can be done now? Is it a legal route that the department is going to take to try and nullify this particular decision? But I just want to ask, sorry, Troy, with Steve as well, is there a rather timid approach to what you think is going on? Because the MEC in the Western Cape suggesting that there are a number of schools that are already selling alcohol. So why this reaction with shock and gasp from the department?
Look, from where we're sitting, we don't know of any school that is selling alcohol in our premises. So, and like as I said, I mean, the permission was sought, and we said no. And hence we went to the liquor board to say, because we know that they will be coming to you for a temporary license, because you need to operate with a temporary license probably if you are not, you don't have a bottle store or any alcohol shop. So you need to be temporarily given that permission to operate. So the licensing, board does not even grant the permission, because we interacted with them and gave them the communique to say this is what we said to our schools and the school management, to say we don't allow utilization nor selling of alcohol in our premises. So we don't allow it. And if there are schools that are doing so, we will really take necessary action against those schools. But up to so far, we don't know any school that is selling alcohol.
All right, let's pose this to Maurice Smythers, coordinator for the South African Alcohol Policy Alliance. Just your view in what we can do as a community, especially where there isn't adequate supervision or even adult presence where alcohol abuse or the availability thereof can be controlled.
Look, I think, Cindy, one of the things everybody needs to understand is that this proposal that's coming from the Western Cape is not happening in isolation of what is the broader problem in the rest of society. Alcohol has become normalized in the sense that it is seen as part and parcel of normal life in society. And this kind of normalization is encouraged by the global liquor companies who want to sell more of their products. That's why there's so much money spent on advertising, for example. There's so much done to encourage people to drink, to make people see alcohol as, there's people who believe you can't enjoy yourself if you don't have a drink. You can't have a braai without a drink. You can't go to a party and not have a drink. So there's this kind of sense that alcohol is, I remember actually somebody said, from the Free Market Foundation once said that alcohol is an essential part of life. Now, when you start looking at alcohol in that way, it becomes easy for people to think that it's okay to sell alcohol at school as long as it's done in a controlled way and so on, because they don't see the way in which it's going to add to the broader problem that we have in our society. So I think that the issue of what is happening in the Western Cape must be actually addressed at a national level. I think, one of the things that is happening at the moment is there is a new liquor policy being drafted by the Department of Trade and Industry, and that particular piece of legislation says that liquor policy in other parts of the country cannot contravene what is said in the national legislation.
Sorry, Mr. Smythers, sorry to interrupt. Mr. Mabona wants to respond to you.
No, I want to say it's unfortunate that we would want to normalize the abnormal situation, really. I mean, when you look at your statistics of the road accidents, look at what alcohol does there, we cannot say we are normalizing alcohol in a society, then we need just to open up ourselves. We need to do something. By the mere fact that we are saying no, at least it's something, that we are doing. We cannot say, let's normalize and say alcohol must be permitted everywhere. No, we need to put our foot down and say, at least we need to do something, because we see statistics are telling us that we have a problem. So we cannot say, let's normalize the abnormal situation as a country or as a society. So we need to do something.
You were saying marketers and, of course, manufacturers of alcohol would like to portray it as something that is essential to society.
No, I mean, even the health minister will tell you that actually he does not want the advertising. I mean, you look at the smoking and then alcohol. It's a serious issue. I mean, healthy living, that's what we need to be promoting. But then look at how we are doing as a country, and look at the incidences that are happening because of consumption.
Mr. Mabena, just very last words from Troy. Is the minister's hands tied, or is she feeling disempowered by the decision that the Western Cape Education Department has taken?
Absolutely not. We're taking this decision that's been taken by the Western Cape, and we're going to review it and apply our minds as to the best possible way forward. We will not take this lying down, and we are very opposed to this entire bill in its entirety. There are many aspects of it that we're not comfortable with as the National Department, and we will be taking legal advice. We will obviously, it should have been consulted at the Council of Education Ministers. It should have been discussed there. That opportunity did not happen. So we want to take it further. And like I said, if needs be, we will create national legislation that, as Maurice has indicated, trumps provincial legislation in order to outlaw the sale of alcohol in schools.
We're going to leave it there. Thanks indeed for your time. And that's Troy Martins, spokesperson for the Minister of Basic Education, Steve Mabona, Gauteng Education spokesperson, Maurice Smythers, coordinator for the South African Alcohol Policy Alliance. And you at home, thanks indeed for participating and calling in. We'll take a quick ad break. We'll see you shortly.